A lot of people, who don't know anything about Wikipedia, just sort of assume that it is a for-profit edited encyclopedia. Of course, it's written by volunteers, and like any online volunteer website, it's possible to be anonymous. The idea that you don't have to reveal your identity continues on regardless of how much authority you have. You can be at the top of the hierarchy, and you don't have to reveal your identity. There is no pressure. And if anything, there's a little pressure to withhold your identity. I identified 3 different groups that I thought wield the most authority. So there is the arbitration committee, which has, I think it's 15 members. Then there is the bureaucrats. I believe there's 15 of those. The bureaucrats are people who can essentially dub the cops of Wikipedia, the administrators. And then there's the check users. A check user is basically an account that has the ability to check the user's IP address. And this is important because if you really want to prevent people from abusing the site, then you have to stop what are called sock puppets. In order to identify sock puppets, you need to have access to IP addresses. Altogether, anyway, all 3, there are 62 of such accounts. And out of all of those, only 9 of them reveal their real names. So 85% of these most powerful accounts, the Power 62 as I call them, 85% are anonymous. I mean, that's crazy. How is that possible? It's possible for people to be libeled on Wikipedia, and the victims of the libel have no legal recourse. They really can't do anything about the problem. They can go and complain on Wikipedia, but if the Wikipedians don't want to listen, they don't have to. And if you continue to complain, you'll be blocked. Here's somebody who ought to be able to answer questions like this, and he just didn't even want to take the time. And you might say that sort of confirms me in my disbelief. Hi, I'm Larry Sanger. I'm co-founder of Wikipedia. Now I am president of the Knowledge Standards Foundation, and we are building something called the Encyclosphere. I have a PhD in philosophy. In fact, all 3 of my college degrees are in philosophy. I bring that sort of sensibility to, well, more or less everything that I do. I have recently let the cat out of the bag that I am a Christian. I was a pretty inquisitive sort of kid. I remember asking a question of my parents as we were driving to church one day. I asked, what's the difference between the mind, the spirit, and the soul? And I had other, curiosities. I guess you might say that I asked more questions than the adults in my life really had patience for. When I was about 12 or 13, my parents were getting a divorce, so we shortly thereafter stopped going to church. I seem to remember my interest in God and my faith perhaps slipping away. I remember taking a class because, as I said, I was pretty inquisitive, a class in philosophy. And it occurred to me that all these people in my life had sort of ruined their lives, or at least they had made some really costly, unforced errors because of falsehoods that they believed. And I wanted never to do that. I essentially raised all of my beliefs to the ground. My belief in God went by the wayside at that time. I remember calling a pastor. I remember asking him, some of these sorts of skeptical questions. And he sort of gave me the brush off. In fact, he struck me as being threatened. And that made an impression on me. I started rethinking some of the classic arguments for the existence of God as I was reading the Bible and like thinking of these new perspectives on the old arguments. And I was finding them to be actually a lot more interesting. It actually makes a lot more sense than I understood. All of the questions that I had asked before had been asked by other people and answered in various ways. There's whole traditions of asking my questions, and many more that I hadn't asked. And but the thing that I hadn't understood is that the reason why there is a 2,000-year-old tradition of theology is that the Bible withstands questioning. If it didn't, you wouldn't be able to go on talking about it in such detail, um, and the doctrines behind it. But it wasn't just an intellectual persuasion. At the same time, I started talking to God or imagining I was having conversations with God, but these turned into prayers. And I said, well, I guess I should actually pray to God and give my life to Him. And I did that.